It's time for some straight talk. Some people are big-time data users, some not so much. Well, Straight Talk Wireless has unlimited plans of all sizes, like the newest, with the first 2 gigs of data at high speed, then 2G for just $35 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data, all on America's largest and most dependable networks. Big or small, everyone saves with Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts, only at Walmart.
A month equals 30 days. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
Here we are. We're Mike and Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests appear on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and we are delighted that you are with us today. I'm delighted to have Booger McFarland in with me all morning long, and we are together delighted to have Will Cain in here to help us discuss the many and varied topics on the sports schedule. How are you, fellas?
Doing well.
Good.
I have a bone to pick with you, McFarland.
What's that?
Or as McFarley, as John Gruden called you this morning, which was a great moment in Mike and Mike history. And that is, I'm told you're the reason that I'm freezing to death. I'm told we have multiple temperature settings in the Mike and Mike studio. One of them is much too hot, and all the others of them are much too cold. There is nothing temperate on the temperature settings. In fact, it's so cold in here, it's remarkable that I'm working. Steven Strasberg could never do a show in this room at the temperature that it is right now with the wheezing. But when I complained about it, I was told that if it's any warmer than this, Booger starts to sweat.
Well, here's the deal. First of all, if you want to heat up, just get a take from Will. He'll get a hot take going.
I understand.
He can heat you up.
He's made many people
That's
sweat.
What I do, man.
Number 2, the equipment, along with me, when we get excited, we get warm. So we have to have it cool when I get excited and when the equipment gets going.
Speaking of excited, can I ask you a question, Booger?
Sure, let's go.
You know, I hear the promos around here. I've been watching the show I do when I wake up in the morning. I've seen that promo about you calling him out on nervous chatter, on fake it chatter, on excited chatter.
Yeah, false chatter.
Yeah, false chatter.
Yeah.
Acting confident, acting excited when you're actually not.
Yeah.
My man is amped today, and he's got that cup of Starbucks over there. I can't tell what it is, but he is talking 100 miles an hour, and he's got topic after topic fired up and ready to go.
Well, this is called, doing my job. And what I'm drinking here, to be honest with you, is tea. And I usually only have the one cup of coffee first thing in the morning, and I try and limit myself to that. But I'm so cold that I needed something. As God is my witness, that's why I asked for this. I said, can someone get me something hot to drink because I'm freezing?
Okay, now you're starting to sound like Steven Strasberg, Greeny. Do your job.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, please, just do your job.
Let's get down to this. Will Cain is here. We are all in the Scott's Lounge together, by the way. Grow quicker, thicker, greener grass with Scott's Turf Builder grass seed. If it can grow in the most winter-like of conditions, then it would be able to grow over here in the Scott's Lounge right now because it's like 8 degrees in here. But anyway, we have a couple of different topics that I'm fired up on today, as you point out. And one of them is this thing with Steven Strasberg. And I'm trying to find a million different ways to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I can't do it. I'm reading Thomas Boswell's column in the Washington Post today and other things. What do you make of this? If indeed on its face it is what it appears to be, and there is no other obvious explanation here, what do you make of a circumstance where in an elimination game, a star pitcher who has given up 0 runs in 7 of his last 8 starts is not able to take the ball because he ran a half a mile and was wheezing and is feeling under the weather, and the manager says it might have something to do with the mold or the air conditioning?
What I take away from it is, at the surface level, taking everything at face value, the same things you guys have said. I mean, this is not only indicting Steven Strasberg's desire to pitch in this game, but perhaps who he is, to Booger's point, about rising to the occasion, wanting to be a part of the moment, wanting the game on his shoulders. But, now I have been accused on many occasions of being a contrarian, just for being the sake of a contrarian, looking for the other side even when it's not there. I think it's a worthy exercise at times, and this looks so obvious, and we are indicting him so deeply, we might consider there's something more here. And honestly, Greeny, I don't know what it is. I mean, have you ever been laid out by allergies? I have, yes. Yeah. And laid out's the key part of that.
I have. I suffer very badly from seasonal allergies. And, I mean, many people will know the show over the years, will attest to the many times I've been sneezing and sniffling and all kinds of things on the air. It tends to hit me once really hard in the spring when everything starts blooming and everything. And I've learned over the years the combination of medication that I need to take that gets it under control, and you do what you have to do. I mean, and again, I understand that if there's really bad issues with the mold and the pollen and the air conditioning, whatever it is, but as I just pointed out, they ran the marathon in Chicago this past weekend, and 9 people people over the age of 80 finished it.
Yeah, but everybody reacts different. Look, in the end, I'm with you. I mean, I can't imagine anything short of a broken bone that would keep him from going out there and performing his job, or at least attempting to. Mm-hmm. And then, as you point out, Booger, having the manager call him back in when it's obvious that he can't. I agree with you, but there's a little part of me that's going, man, would Steven Strasburg really, at this point in his career, shrink from the moment? Would he really do that?
But what else is there, though?
Well, I'm trying.
Can you come up with anything else?
That's the point, Booger. I'm trying. Maybe he's laid out by mold. Maybe mold has really taken its toll on him. And it's taken its toll on him in a way it didn't to the 80-year-old marathon runner.
You can't even say that with a straight face. Like, you can't even come up and say, you know what?
But maybe it's something else. I think you suggested maybe it's something else. Maybe
Right.
it's something personal. I don't know, man.
Whatever it is, and listen, I don't ever want to be sitting here and advocating lying, right? I mean, that's not a good thing to do when you're a person. When you're a person with a microphone and a loud voice.
We're starting now.
But there are some circumstances where the truth is not always the best policy, right? I mean, if they were trying to defend Strasburg, let's put it this way.
Well, so you're saying Dusty Baker may not be telling the truth?
Well, I don't know. I think he is telling the truth, because who would make this up?
Okay, well, what if he's not?
What
if he's not telling?
If he's not, then what is the reality? What could be worse than this? What are they hiding that would be worse for him reputationally and otherwise than we got mold, we got air conditioning? I mean, the whole thing feels so ridiculous. I hardly even know what to say. Sports lore is more than anything drawn around the great ones who've risen in the worst moments. Again, the Michael Jordan flu game comes immediately to mind. The Kurt Schilling bloody sock game comes immediately to mind. Sandy Koufax pitching with his arm basically hanging at his side comes to mind, and so many others. Jack Youngblood playing the entire Super Bowl with a broken leg, and millions of other stories. Basically every football player ever dragging himself out there, with lidocaine and everything else that you guys need to play every Sunday. That's what sports is supposed to be. Even I know that, and I'm the untoughest person in the entire world.
Well, and to your point, Will, about Dusty Baker, based on the questionable decision of taking out Scherzer after he had pitched 6 in the third inning, only giving up 1 hit, based on the underachieving nature that is the Washington Nationals, I don't think Dusty Baker is in a position, or would he put himself in a position, in my opinion, to get up there and lie. I think Dusty was giving us the honest-to-God truth. I don't think Dusty was in a position that says, you know what, I've earned enough credit in this town where I can take this one, and Steven Strasburg, you deal with it.
Do you think Strasburg will end up pitching in this game?
Yes, which will make, in my opinion, Strasburg look even worse.
Exactly. It will make it look worse. I think you're right. I think he'll pitch in the game.
I don't know. I don't. I think they'll save him for Game 5.
Well, what if there is no Game 5?
Well, that's why he's not. He should have the ball to begin the game. Right. I understand that. But if he's not well enough to pitch in the game, then he's not well enough to pitch in the game. It wouldn't make a lot of sense to me, especially if you are then planning to hand him the ball in a Game 5. You could make literally any other decision might sound more sensible. All right, let's move on to the next topic here with Will Cain. We opened the show this morning with the startling story coming from the world of soccer. And again, we understand that in the general sports discourse, especially in October, where we have the baseball playoffs and we have football, both college and pro, as hot and heavy as they can be, and the hockey season has begun and the basketball season is around the corner, the people aren't thinking a whole lot about soccer right now. But when the World Cup rolls around this coming summer, generally the one time this whole country kind of gets into soccer, the American team will not be playing for the first time since 1986. Will Cain, what is your reaction? And at the risk of asking it in an overly simplistic way, on a scale of 1 to 10, how big a deal is this to you?
My reaction is it's embarrassing, and it's about a 9 or 10 for me. I like soccer. I'm a soccer fan. I wake up on Saturday and Sunday mornings and watch Manchester City when they're playing because I'm a fan, beat whoever it is they're playing right now because they're awesome. I like watching the American team. I like watching international soccer, the World Cup. I like watching the Euros, CONCACAF. I like soccer. And it's embarrassing that the United States of America, a nation of 350 million people with unlimited resources, can't compete at the highest levels in soccer. Now, I'm not Taylor Twellman. I don't have the insight and deep background in soccer that a lot of these guys have to analyze what's the problem. Why is this? Because this isn't a problem of one game, and Taylor's pointed that out. It's not a problem of the United States versus Trinidad and Tobago. And the truth of the matter is, it's not even a matter of missing this World Cup. It's missing the last 2 Olympics as well. And why is it? Why is it a country with that kind of population, with those kind of resources, cannot compete at the highest levels? Now, quickly, I'll tell you this, Green. This is the only thing I think I would have to add to this as a deep analysis. My kids play soccer, and they play in New York City, and they actually play through their school, and which is an odd thing to happen at the elementary school level age. And the philosophy of this unique program in New York City is this, that everywhere else in the world, soccer is the sport of poverty. Soccer is the sport of the streets. People play it even though they can't afford to play it. And in the United States, the feeder system for soccer is kids that are wealthy enough to have their parents pay for big travel teams that can get the best coaching and play against the highest competition. And that we are following a model, and I think, again, Taylor Twellman has pointed out, especially at the ages of 15 to 18, that has just neglected to develop the best players and the best athletes in our country. Soccer, among many other things in this entire recipe, needs to add the ingredient of being available to everyone. And I'm proud that in New York City, this program we're part of is part of that, of bringing it to African Americans, Latinos, every race, creed, color, and most importantly, every socioeconomic background.
Well, here's the thing I'll say, Will. I think you live in a country now in the U.S. where soccer at best may be the fourth or fifth most popular sport. They're trying to grow it, and the best athletes go elsewhere. So I don't know if it's a fact of choice. Maybe the kids are making the choice to go on and play football or basketball or baseball instead of soccer. I think the parents are the one that are really pushing soccer for the kids because of the safety elm that they think is there.
The only reason I think that fails, Booger, is this. There's 350 million people here.
Right.
Even we are awesome at swimming. We're awesome at golf. We're awesome at 4th, 5th, 6th selection sports. You know, it's not just that football and basketball get our best athletes. We're good at almost everything except for tennis that I can think of. We're good at almost everything, and soccer shouldn't be an exception to that.
Yeah, and tennis, we're really, I would describe it as in a lull outside of the Williams
Specifically on the
sisters.
men's side.
Yeah, well, good. I mean, we have historically been great.
There, right.
We have produced more great tennis players than all the other countries in the world combined. We haven't done a lot of it lately.
Right.
But to your point is well taken. Because I was thinking what Booger said. Also, if you took the best athletes in the United States, just take the NBA. And if all those guys had grown up dreaming of being soccer players instead of being basketball players, would we be the best soccer team in the world?
Yes.
I mean, we would.
Yes.
That kind of is the answer to the question.
Well, no, but that doesn't mean that has to be that's not our problem. That would be, what you said is certainly true. If the best athletes in the United States were competing at soccer, we would be among the best in the world. But that doesn't mean that's what our problem is. Because again, sports that can be 3rd, 4th, 5th on the kids' selection list, we're still great at. Why aren't we great at soccer? And it's in my estimation, It's a development problem.
Well, the question you're asking, or the statement you're making is these other countries take their best athletes and put them in soccer, maybe some in baseball, whereas the United States are taking their 2nd, 3rd, maybe even 4th tier athletes and putting them in soccer. I think that's a very viable option as to why we've fallen behind and we're trying to make a huge push.
But again, 350 million people. How many people does Belgium have? Does Belgium have more people than New York City? I don't even know if it does. Does it have a population over 8 million?
I'd be stunned.
And Belgium is a world powerhouse in soccer. And so it's not because their best athletes are going to soccer and ours are not. We have more people to pick from. We have a deeper problem than just what sports kids are selecting to play.
Look, we lost to Trinidad and Tobago yesterday.
Right.
More people grew up in my building than that, but that's neither here nor there. All right, Mike and Mike, Will Cain is here. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Okay. Booger this morning, I don't know if you got a chance to hear it, had, I thought, a really interesting and impassioned perspective on what has become the overwhelming sports story of this time, and that is the issue of NFL players kneeling and the reaction from many, including the President of the United States. I know this is something that you've been on basically every show on the planet talking about, Will. But, Booger, because I don't want to ask you to shorten it because, you know, there's so much nuance in it, but for those in the audience who didn't get to hear it, what is the basic point you were trying to make?
Well, I think right now we're in a lose-lose situation, and I think the NFL commissioner and the NFL owners have figured out that this is affecting the bottom line. The players are starting to see that this could potentially affect them and their ability to work with Jerry Jones and some of the other owners saying you can't play for us. And so I think it's a lose-lose situation. And more importantly, that the overwhelming message that was put out there by Colin Kaepernick and others about some of the racial inequality, some of the social injustice, the police brutality has by and large been ignored and is being ignored right now. So my whole plea is really simple. Let's all stand now. I think the message is being lost. I think things are being affected that we didn't expect or want to be affected. So now let's stand up. All the players stand up. Now, turn to the commissioner of the National Football League, Roger Goodell, and says, you want us to stand. You're sending out memos. You're sending out pleas for help. We'll help by standing. And in return, or maybe not in return, but we would like you to help us. Because there's a dialogue that needs to be had between the president of the United States, who's calling out the NFL, who's calling out their players, who's calling out people that work at this network about this very thing. And so we're going to ask the commissioner, we'll stand. All 1,700 players, we stand. Now you help us get a dialogue to get back to the initial issue of police brutality and social injustice. So that's my plea to the players, because kneeling is not working any longer. Kneeling is now creating issues that were not intended. So I would like them to stand, to push the onus on Roger Goodell, to push the onus back on the president of the United States, to get some dialogue so we can eventually solve the issue at the beginning of this controversy, which is what Colin Kaepernick wanted in the first place.
Booger, I'm almost with you 100% of the way there. I am so personally exhausted by this entire topic. It's not because I don't want to have this conversation.
Correct.
And it's not because I don't want to find solutions with you, for example, Booger, who I've had many conversations with. And it's not because I think at the end of this rainbow we're going to agree on everything.
Right.
But it's such a mess right now, man. It is such a gaggle of BS, of people yelling at each other, accusing each other of the worst of human motivations and intentions, and I don't know how we see our way out of it. I mean, I agree with you. We are now landing in a place where it's lose-lose every which way around, and I would like to help find a win-win. I do think kneeling has to stop. I think that you're right. I think it's gotten in the way of any kind of productive conversation or any kind of productive solution. I really do. And I'm one of the people, as I've made clear, that sees kneeling as an insult to the concept of the United States of America. I won't stop there. I won't stop at that insult and neglect to go forward and hear the conversation we need to have. But I think many people can't get beyond that emotional reaction to something they feel very deeply about, the American flag, the national anthem. And players need to realize that. For a great percentage of the fan base, that's how that's landing. And there won't be any conversation after that. I think if we can do our best to look at this from these four angles, President of the United States, please stay out of this. You're exacerbating problems, not solving them. Owners, number two, Jerry Jones and Roger Goodell. You probably have to do what you're doing. You have to put down some kind of rule, or you have to say this is not going to happen, because their simple and solitary goal is business, and it's hurting business. Fans have made clear, at least a great percentage of them, they don't want to see this anymore, and that's what owners are responding to. And finally, players. Players have a greater goal in mind than kneeling for the national anthem. Yes. And is there a way we can get that conversation on some kind of productive path? You know, we've had conversations about police brutality, the killing of unarmed black men.
Yes.
There are going to be aspects of that, data perhaps, that we're going to disagree on. But we're not going to disagree that there's inequalities in the United States of America, that there are injustices, both on isolated incidences and on greater scales. And I think we can. If you and I, or you and I, Greeny, for that matter, are any small symbol, there are things we can agree on and things we can move forward on. But we can't just keep circling back to this national anthem and flag over and over. We need to move beyond it. I think the way is to stand.
You know, Greeny, it's to a point, Greeny, now that everyone is grandstanding on their particular points. The president has found a case in point where now he can say, look at the NFL, I got you. We're talking about the tax breaks. We're talking about all these different things, and it's all about the flag. Never once have I heard him mention about the police brutality or the social injustices. Now you have the owners. The owners are really in a tough situation. Roger Goodell is in the toughest because he's employed by the owners, but he has to govern the players. You have to always look out for your players, because the reason there's so much tension now between D. Smith and Roger and the players and in the league office is because a lot of the players don't think the owners give a damn about them. So you have to pay attention to your players. But the owners are saying, wait a minute, we got to look at our bottom line, because when the sponsorships start getting affected, now our business gets affected, and now our pocket and the bottom line gets affected. So it's a very tough situation. That's why, in my opinion, Roger Goodell has to be the one that says, listen, these are our players. Okay, if we can ask them to step on this field with all the dangers of CTE, all the dangers of concussions, and everything that goes on in the dangerous sport of football, at least we can do is listen to what they're saying, because they're putting their lives and their family's livelihood on the line every time they go out there. And it would be irresponsible of us not to do that. Roger has to convey that message to his bosses. And to me, I think if the players will stand I know Roger well enough. I think Roger will do that. But I think the players are diluting the message right now by kneeling, because as long as you kneel, now the president can continue to grandstand. He can continue to send out tweets at 3:45 in the morning. He can continue being what he's been. And now the NFL owners and Roger, they have to respond to all of that instead of getting to the issue of how can we help the communities where black people feel like they've been violated over and over again. Once we get there, I think then we start to solve the issue. But right now, everyone's just grandstanding on their particular platform.
We'll give you the final word.
I would just say this. We spend a lot of time, and I have as well, going after Roger Goodell, talking about all of Roger Goodell's failures and the way he has not lived up to the responsibility of his job. This letter, Booger, acknowledges pretty much everything you said. It says, that the national anthem is threatening to erode the unifying force of our sport, that like many of our fans, we believe you should stand for the national anthem. But he does say here, we need to work with our players to find a platform. Now, you can say that's political speak. You can say that's PR talk. But that's exactly what you're saying.
Yes.
Find a way to help these issues work towards solutions. Now, the NFL doesn't have an obligation to do that. No workplace does. But in being part of a community with your players, it's probably a wise thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Hey everyone, Mike Golick here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
All right, Mike and Mike Booger McFarland is here tomorrow morning at this time. We'll be talking to Paul Feinbaum, get his thoughts on Jim Harbaugh, among other things. I want to put a ribbon on the conversation we just had with Will Cain, which, by the way, spilled well into the commercial break. And I know you and he were talking a little bit somewhat privately, and I took part in it a little bit as well. These are such complicated issues because the first casualty of emotion is reason.
Yep.
It is very difficult to be reasonable, and I don't in any way absolve myself of this or separate myself from this. Whenever any of us feel very strongly emotionally about a topic, it becomes much more difficult to be reasonable when discussing it, when debating it, when considering it, and when figuring out, when need be, how to approach it. But that's what is required here. If these will be my final words on the subject, at least for today and until it comes up again, what is required is if there is going to be an ending to this that is anything but awful, what is going to be required is that a lot of people are willing to set aside their emotional response to a variety of different things and start utilizing some reason. We require reasonable solutions to problems that right now are stoking enormous passion for understandable reasons and thus are creating a lot of unreasonable response.
The question was brought up, what's a win look like? What's a win look like for both sides? I think a win for one side, Greeny, really is a win for the other. Because as anyone who governs our great United States, we should want everyone to be treated fairly and equally. We should want justice for all. Pledge of Allegiance tells us there's liberty and justice for all. And so I think as we look at the specific topic that we have here about the NFL, what's a win for the NFL? To get our focus back on football. What's a win for the owners? To continue making money. What's a win for Roger Goodell? To continue the growth toward the $25 billion, which he ultimately wants to grow the NFL to. And what's a win for the President of the United States? A win for him is he wants people to respect the flag, in his words, because it's a symbol of our country. And I think eventually, Greeny, we can all win because there can be enough attention paid to police brutality and social injustices. I think you couldn't, I don't think there's any way you could find a handful of people, if you walk down the street and say, you know what? I'm all for that police brutality. I'm all for those guys getting treated badly. Like, I think in the simple concept, people want to do the right thing. So we all can win here. It's just amazing that we're taking so long to get to this point.
The NFL, by the way, I was going to get off this, but this I think is significant. The NFL has released a new statement. It would appear to me in direct response to the president's tweet this morning. The president, as we mentioned, tweeted, can someone get it up for me so I read it verbatim because I have the NFL statement now on my screen. The NFL tweeted in the 6 o'clock hour Eastern time this morning. Can we get that up as quickly as we can here, please? Something that said specifically, here it is. Is that this morning? Yes. It is about time that Roger Goodell of the NFL is finally demanding that all players stand for our great national anthem, respect our country, all in capital letters. Other words, respect our country. The NFL has released a new statement which, while not mentioning the president by name, clearly, I can't read it any other way except to point out that that is not an accurate representation of the letter that was sent by Goodell to the teams yesterday. I'll just read you the statement. Commentary this morning about the commissioner's position on the anthem is not accurate. As we said yesterday, there will be a discussion of these issues at the owners' meeting next week. The NFL is doing the hard work of trying to move from protest to progress, working to bring people together. Commissioner Goodell spent yesterday with Miami Dolphins players, law enforcement, and community leaders, witnessing firsthand the outstanding work our players and clubs are doing to strengthen their communities. Players from around the league will be in New York next week to meet with owners to continue our work together. That is a new statement from the National Football from the NFL that we got at 9:27, 8 minutes ago. That just came across. And clearly that I can't read it any other way except to be a reaction to the tweet of the president this morning, who, if you did not read the letter yesterday, you would have been led to believe that Goodell had come to the conclusion that the league will force players to stand. That's clearly what the president tweeted. It is not accurate. It is not an accurate reading of the statement, that the letter that was written by Goodell yesterday, and this statement clarifies that.
But Greeny, even if we get to the point where they change the wording of the bylaws to must stand, I think that's no different in the NBA. And the NBA, I think they mandate all their players stand.
They do.
Okay, and the NBA has some of the most outspoken guys against these issues that we've ever seen. So I don't think we can take it as if the NFL is drawing the line in the sand. The NFL understands they are a business and the bottom line is being affected. So we have to do something about the bottom line, because the bottom line ultimately of the owners' pockets determine what the bottom line of the players' pockets are going to look like. So I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. But you notice what you didn't hear in that when you read the president's tweet or you read the statement about the NFL? We didn't hear anything about the issues. And that's the point. So now the kneeling is no longer being effective. So let's get back. Everybody stand. Let's move forward. Let's get back to the real issues here.
Okay. So there's that. And it sort of speaks for itself. We'll move on to other things here. Let's do next question so we can go around the world of sports here a little bit with Mike and Mike. Our next question is brought to you by Indeed.com. Post your next job opening on the world's #1 job site. Booger, I'll throw a bunch of questions at you. Here we go. The first is a fill-in-the-blank-esque question. The U.S. failing to qualify for the World Cup is blank.
Disappointing. It's disappointing with the amount of resources that we've thrown in soccer. It's disappointing with the amount of talent that I think we have. And for us to try to make a grassroots effort to continue to grow soccer and make soccer maybe the fourth most popular sport in the United States is very disappointing that we can't even beat a team that, quite frankly, I think we expected to just drum, and we have more talent than.
I would go further. I would say it is devastating. The U.S. failing to qualify for the World Cup is devastating to those who care about the growth of soccer in this country. I think it is a devastating blow. I think it sets the sport back in this country significantly. Next question, true or false? Dusty Baker is making the right decision, sticking with his pitcher in today's Game 4 rather than going to Steven Strasburg.
True, because I think that if he forced Steven Strasburg to start, you're not going to get the best Strasburg because mentally he's not there right now. And when a guy mentally is checked out and he's telling you, yeah, I'll give you what I got. Nah, buddy, that's not the mentality I want from a starting pitcher. I want a bulldog out there. So I think based on the information and the intel that I have, he's making the right decision.
Totally agree with you. I was just about to say exactly that. If everything that we are led to believe is the entirety of the circumstance, then he's absolutely making the right decision. Give the ball to someone who wants it.
Yep.
Next question. The over-under is 0.5. How many 100-yard games Adrian Peterson has left in the remainder of his career? Again, he was traded yesterday to Arizona. Will he have as many as one more? The over-under is 0.5.
Yeah, I'll take the over because I think Arizona will force feed him. And their offensive line is terrible. It's not like he's about to set the world on fire and rush for 300 yards. But I do think with a volume number of carries, I think he can eclipse the 100-yard mark. More importantly, what I think this is going to do is send Adrian Peterson into retirement. I think he's going to get beat up so bad behind a porous offensive line. I think the Arizona Cardinals, while a couple of years ago they were a darling pick, I think their window has closed. Carson Palmer, dwindling their best player on their team, Patrick Peterson. Don't be surprised, Greeny, if you see people start to make calls on Patrick Peterson, realizing that situation out there is not getting any better, and he's still young, one of the best cornerbacks in football.
Mike and Mike with Booger McFarland in for Golic today, and Tim Kurkjian has joined us here as he is running around at the busiest time of the year. How are you, Timmy?
Really good.
Well, you got a day without baseball yesterday, so did you catch up on your sleep? What did you do yesterday?
Absolutely not. I haven't had a good night's sleep since 1979. So.
Wow.
And you've never had a cup of coffee, so...
Right. So, it's the news that carries us through, and we've got news this morning.
Yes, clearly. So we've got John Farrell out as Red Sox manager. What do we know?
All right. Well, there are two ways to look at this. Number one, this is unfair for a guy to get fired after winning 2 division championships in a row. The last time the Red Sox finished first consecutive years was 1915-16, and he adds that to a resume that includes a world championship. So bottom line is he did not deserve to be fired. And yet, this is Boston, this is baseball, and this is how it works. And when you get knocked out in the first round 2 seasons in a row and don't look very good doing it, that's enough in Boston to say, we got to get somebody else. And let's face it, guys, 5 years in one place is about the shelf life for a lot of people these days, especially when you manage in Boston. It is really hard to manage there. And when you look at, the David Price fiasco happen on John Farrell's watch, whether it's his fault or not is almost irrelevant. That can't happen on a big league team. The whole watch thing was a very small thing for me, but it happened on John Farrell's watch, and that can't happen. And then you play like they did in October 2 years in a row. That can't happen either, not when you're the manager of the Boston Red Sox.
So the general manager there now, or the man running all baseball operations, I'm not sure exactly what his title is Dave Dombrowski, who's not the guy who hired Farrell. So we start to look at that. Who are his guys? If we start to speculate on who the next manager might be, who are his guys?
Well, Brad Ausmus is one of his guys. He had him in Detroit. He loves Brad Ausmus. There's a lot to like about Brad Ausmus, but, he didn't win in Detroit, and it's going to be, people in Boston will go, well, he didn't win in Detroit, now you're going to bring him here. Personally, I think he'd be a great choice for the Red Sox. They also have Gary DiSarcina, who's their bench coach, who's a very highly regarded guy. They have Jason Varitek, who's never managed, of course, but he's a former Red Sox. He's former captain of the Red Sox. He could bring discipline and a lot to that club. I'm not sure he's ready to do this, but he's a possibility. Alex Cora is going to get a job. He's a really smart guy. He's the bench coach now for the Astros. Ron Gardenhire's out there, did a great job in Minnesota all those years. Those are just 5 names. I'm sure there'll be many more before they pick somebody.
And Tim, we have to ask you about the story today. This thing that's going on with Dusty Baker and Steven Strasburg and going for a run and the wheezing and the allergies. Greeny and I both don't understand. An athlete's supposed to take the ball in this moment in the playoffs. We've seen so many athletes do it. Is there something that we're missing with this story, the reason why Steven Strasburg is not going to get the ball?
I don't think you're missing anything because I'm confused also. Okay, maybe we'll find out today that he's really sick, but this is the bottom line. This is an elimination game, and this is October, and pitchers take the ball. Just look at what Sale and Verlander did the other day. Look to last year when Corey Kluber multiple times on short rest said, Give me the ball. Look at Kershaw pitching in relief when there was no way he was going to pitch in that game. Look at 2001 when Randy Johnson pitched in Game 7 of the World Series after pitching the day before, starting the day before in Game 6. And look at 1991 when Jack Morris, in the 10th inning of a 0-0 game, the manager came to take him and he said, "You're not taking me out of Game 7 of the World Series in the 10th inning." Great pitchers take the ball in October. Period.
Yeah, it's and I took my cue on this in part from watching David Ross's reaction and Mark Teixeira's reaction, because players know that stuff, right? They know. It feels to me like they know, yeah, no. There's something you guys don't get here. There's an explanation for this that makes sense, and neither of them saw one either. Another example I'm thinking of is CC Sabathia, not nearly as highly publicized, but the guy who's going to take the ball for the Yankees tonight, when he was traded midseason to the Brewers that year. Remember that? A team to which he had basically no allegiance. He hadn't been there the whole season, and he was clearly going to sign somewhere else as a free agent, and he wanted the ball in the playoffs, right? Didn't he come back and pitch on short rest?
Several times. This is what you do, and it's only our players, Greeny, that can truly understand this. Frankly, you and I can't, but Mark Teixeira and David Ross were legitimately angry last night when learning that somebody wasn't feeling well enough to go take the ball. David Ross told us yesterday that one of the Cubs came out of a game with a stomachache a few years ago, and David Ross went to him and said, "You have a stomachache and you came out of a Major League game? What are you doing?" And it just is unacceptable at this time of year to not take the ball in the most important game of the season on full rest.
So the one thing that people like you and I do is we sort of, you guys understand the game from the inside and you play it. We chronicle it. It's our job to sort of tell the story. So let's say they lose today, and that's the end of the season for them with the history that they've had and the history that he's had. What does that do? What is the story of Stephen Strasburg at this point in his career?
Well, I'm afraid to say, but it's going to be, his legacy is going to be tarnished even more from something like this for not taking the ball. Again, we have to see how sick he is, but it's going to be remembered that the Nationals didn't win another playoff series, and people are going to blame Stephen Strasburg for that. Will that be fair? Of course not. Team's hitting 121 in the first 3 games of the series. It's got to be more than that, but that's how people are going to look at this, and he's got money. It's not an injury situation. He's on full rest, and unfortunately, with the history of the Nationals, this is the time for Stephen Strasburg to show everybody how great he is. He didn't even pitch in 2012 because they wouldn't let him. He only pitched once in 2014. This is his time to shine this postseason.
It's stunning. That's why, for all the reasons you just so well described, that's why I find this whole thing so totally surprising. But either way, we got both games for you today on ESPN Radio. Should be a thrilling day in Chicago and in Cleveland. Does not look like weather is going to be a factor in either one. Game 4 this afternoon at Wrigley Field. Game 5 tonight at Progressive Field, and all the actions on ESPN Radio. Timmy, you're the best. Thank you for stopping in and doing this.
Thanks, guys. See you.
We appreciate it. That's Tim Kurkjian running over to do SportsCenter.
Long strides, Tim. Long strides. Long.
Booger, thank you, my man.
Anytime,
you are the best. So much fun today, even though you almost froze me out of my own room. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy both games, and we'll see you back in Better Than Ever. Same place, same time tomorrow. Mike and Mike.